right, see, we skipped 1.4, but we're going back for it. Don't worry. But first, I want to talk about absolute and relative change, because that's what 1.4 is all about. So absolute change is just the difference, right? Where do we start? Where do we end? What's the difference? We have absolute value signs right here. These absolute value signs just make something positive. Oh, I don't know how to get rid of this. And then relative change is just, okay, let's find that absolute change first and then divide it by the starting amount. Okay. Sometimes relative change is also used as percent change, because this is going to give you a decimal right here. So if we have a decimal, then if we have a decimal and we convert it to a percent, then we get the percent change. So let's look at 1.4 with this information. So 1.4 is saying the value of a car dropped from $7,400 to $6,800 over the last year. What is the percent decrease? Well, we're just going to do exactly the formula that was given to us. All right. Absolute change is ending minus starting, and relative is absolute over starting. Okay, so, right, relative is equal to absolute change divided by starting. So we have to find the absolute change before we can find this percent decrease. So absolute change was ending minus starting in absolute values. Oops. I wrote mine in the wrong order. It's supposed to be ending minus starting, but I wrote starting minus ending. But it doesn't matter because we have absolute values. So the order of subtraction doesn't matter because we're making it positive here. But usually we'll write 6,800 minus 7,400. The bottom one definitely does matter. What are we starting at? We're starting at 7,400. Okay, that's right. This is starting. This is ending. And usually we'll switch these in the numerator, but it won't matter here. So get your calculator, do it out. You should get 600 on the top. The bottom is 7,400. We could simplify a little bit, canceling out these zeros. 6 over 74, that reduces even more, but we really just want to know, what is this as a decimal? So we go off to our calculator and we say, okay, what is 6 divided by 74? And that is approximately 0.08108, etc. We'll round it. And we want to know what percent is this. So again, just like in the first video, we move the decimal place 2 to the right and say this is about 8.108, or you can round it to 8.11% decrease. All right, so the car was originally 7,400. It decreased to 6,800. That was an 8.11% decrease. All right. And so that's just what we're doing. We're just using these formulas. So we'll do something similar for 1.5. We're now looking at the U.S. federal debt. So at the end of 2001, it was 5.77 trillion, and then it grew to a different number. And then we're also looking at in 2005, where it was 7.91, and it grew to 8.45. So what it wants us to do is we want to calculate the absolute and relative increase for both of those chunks of years, and say which year. And so there's a lot of questions, right? We need to find the absolute for each. We need to find the relative for each. And we need to answer the last question as well. So lots to do here. So let's get on top of it. So this is a big number, 5.77 trillion. Let's just have all of our numbers be in trillions, and then remember that they're in trillions, so we don't say that, oh yeah, the debt increased by 50 cents. That would be silly. Okay, so let's find each one of these. So at the end of, 2001 to 2002, we'll calculate these over here. And then we'll also do 2005 to 2006 over here, and we'll compare them. So the absolute change, sometimes I'll abbreviate as ABS. Absolute change here was ending minus starting in absolute values. 6.20 minus 5.77. I think I overestimated my ability to fit all these numbers in here. And when you subtract that out, you get 0.43. And again, this is still in absolute values, but because this is a positive number, right, absolute values just turn something positive. So because it was already positive, the absolute values don't really do anything here. So this is in trillions of dollars. So that's going to say we can convert this to $430 billion. And that's our absolute change from 2001 to 2002. While we're at it, let's find the relative change. So the relative change, the formula says, is the absolute change divided by the starting. So the starting was 6.20. Now be very careful not to put 430 up here. We need to be comparing apples to apples. This is in trillions of dollars, so the numerator also needs to be in trillions of dollars. 0.43. Okay. We'll type that into a calculator. We'll get 0.43 divided by 6.2. And our calculator is going to give us that this is approximately equal to 0.06935. Convert that to a percent. And we'll say that is, again, move the decimal place twice to convert it, 6.94% approximately. So the debt increased by about 6.94% in that year. We can do the exact same thing with 2005 to 2006. So this would be a good time to pause the video, do the other one on your own, and then we'll compare them. So pause the video now and do the problem. Hopefully you paused it. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. So the absolute value here is going to be 8.45 minus 7.91. When you subtract that out, you should get 0.54, which is going to be 540 billion. The relative is going to be this change, 0.54, divided by the starting. Oh no, I did it again. I didn't divide by the starting, guys. I divided by the ending. This right here should be 5.77. This right here should be 7.91. This is the incorrect answer. But we can do the same thing over here. Hopefully you caught it. And said, hopefully you were screaming at the video. This one over here is approximately 0.0682. Nope, round it to 3, which is 6.83% increase. All right, and then if we go over and fix our answer from the other one, the relative was 0.43 divided by 5.77, which you follow all the steps. 0.43 divided by 5.77 should have given you about a 7.45% increase. Okay. So even though the absolute change was bigger in 2005, the relative increase was bigger in 2001. Okay, so that's the last question that it's asking us. Which year saw a larger increase? Well, you know, in absolute change, 2005. So absolute change in 2005 was bigger, but relatively, 2001. So there's a lot to your answer here. Make sure to box it all. So this is the final answer. These are the relative increases. And we can box these as well. Make sure you have the right units. Relative increase could either be $0.54 trillion or $540 billion. Both relative increases will be giving as percents in here. And then we have our answer in words. There we go. We survived even with the even with me trying to see whether you were paying attention and notice my mistake. In all seriousness, it can be a really good idea to label when you're writing these things down. Label which one's which. Like this is the ending. This is the starting. I haven't done these problems in a long time. I need to label them too, I think. It just shows also, right? It's easy to make mistakes on these. We're going to finish this video with 1.6. And we have a politician's support. It's increasing from 40% of voters to 50% of voters. So this one's covers a commonly misunderstood topic, so it'll be good to mention as well. We want to describe the change. So we're going to talk about absolute change and relative change. So let's first find the absolute change. Right? We're going from 40% to 50%. This is our starting, and this is our ending. Good job, Jason. So the absolute change is going to be the absolute value of the ending, 50%. So you have two ways of writing this. You can either write it as 50%, or you can write it as a decimal, as 0.5. It's up to you. But make sure that you know and are writing down which one you're using. 0.5 minus 0.4 is 0.1. The absolute value of a positive number is itself. So the absolute change is 0.1, or let's put it back in the original units, 10%. So when we say this, we don't say there was a 10% increase, because 10% increase has to do with relative change, which we haven't found yet. What we say is 10 percentage points. Okay. And that's really what is often talked about when people look at like polls and stuff. So look at percentage points. So that's what those are. So 10 percentage points. You might say up 10 percentage points. That's one way of describing the change. Or we could also describe the change with relative change as well, which is the absolute, which was 0.1, divided by the starting, which was 0.4. Type this onto a calculator, you should get 1/4, or 0.25. Change that to a percent, 25% increase. So there's two ways, and now I'm actually doubting myself. There's two ways of talking about this. No, it is percentage points. Good. So you have to be very careful. He or she gained 10% percentage points, or there was a 25% increase in support. They both have percents, which is kind of weird. So especially when we're talking about changes of percents, be very careful of these ones. We'll do some more of these in the final video.